Finally, a successor to the clean, and with a multi-driver setup, this is going to be interesting. Hello and thank you for clicking on this video. I'll be sharing my experience on Kefine's latest IEM, and this is the Kefine Quatio. I hope that's how it's pronounced. Is that a Latin word? Anyway, this is a 2DD2BA hybrid IEM coming in at about $129 US. The Kefine Clean has been one of my favorite releases from Kefine, so I'm excited to hear what they've done with a hybrid setup. But before we dive deeper into that, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Kefine for sending this unit for me to test and share my experience with all of you. However, as always, all thoughts and opinions are my own and are not influenced by any parties. If you're interested in checking out this IEM or any other IEMs, I'll leave some links in the description down below. And if you've been enjoying my content, I hope you'll hit that like and subscribe button, as they'll help the channel a lot and I'd appreciate your support. The unboxing of the Quatio is pretty straightforward. Opening the box, you'll be greeted by the IEMs. There's another box containing 2 cases of ear tips, which is nice. Very rare to receive ear tip cases nowadays with IEM packages, so it's a nice little extra to the set. The case itself is the standard generic Chi-Fi case with the texture and Kefine's engraving on it. Nothing much to write home about, but it's big enough to store the IEMs and its cable. They also provided you with 2 interchangeable terminations, one 4.4 and one 3.5mm termination, and it also has interchangeable nozzles, and I love how they were able to put in some grill patterns and color code it to differentiate between each other. So very nice little touches done by Kefine. But how will it affect sound? We'll get to that later in the video. We have the stock cable and it looks really nice, especially for this price range. I mean, it looks better than some stock cables at higher price range. It's got some heft to it, nice gunmetal silver color scheme going on. Just the cable I would use and not think about swapping over, which is not something I could say for every IEM package's stock cable. There's even an indicator for you to align the terminations, and you can screw it in for a tighter fit. The IEM design is a little bit of an opposite to the rest of the accessories. It's pretty plain and straightforward. You got a black matte metal body with the Kefine name branded on the faceplate with a ring around it, and that's pretty much it. Not much more to say about the design of this IEM. It's not my most favorite IEM design, and even the Kefine Clean looks a bit sleeker in design compared to the Quatio. There were so many little design touches to the accessories that were great, like the nozzles and the cable, and so I wished some of them were applied to the IEM itself. But that's more of my personal preference. If you want a simple design, it doesn't get any simpler than this. For fit and comfort, there's not a lot of contours on this IEM, so while it doesn't rest or sit inside my ears, as well as other IEMs with some contours, the ear hooks was tight enough to give the IEM some fit security. It is quite compact and lightweight, so I was able to wear this IEM for hours no problem. So for the sound of the Quatio, testing it on the stock nozzle, it's very similar to the Kefine Clean, which I'll get into more later, but the bass is full bodied and it has that snappiness to it. It's not a bass head IEM, but it's enough that you'll be tapping your toes to the beat, and it'll give a nice foundation to your tracks. There's not a lot coming from the sub bass, but it forms a very rounded sounding bass note. Vocal takes center stage with the background music as an accompaniment, and is a very smooth sounding IEM, which can be a good or bad thing depending on your preference. There's a bit of roll off in the treble extension, so trumpet sound a little pushed back and is missing that sharpness and openness to its note attacks, which is good if you're sensitive to treble and you just want to sit back and relax. But personally, I'd like to have just a touch more elevation up top, just to give those notes a bit more incisiveness, but that's more of a personal preference again. But that's why you have interchangeable nozzles, more on that shortly. Imaging is really good for its price. You can hear distinctively what's happening in the left and right channel. Soundstage is about average, it's neither too wide or too intimate. Details are coming through clean, but you hear more of the macro details than the micro details, as those details, especially on busy tracks, tend to get lost amongst the others, but that's about expected at this price range. So the interchangeable nozzles are pretty much like the treble and bass boost filters in a way, at least from my experience, but the differences between the silver to black nozzle, which sounded like it was meant to be a bass boost filter, is less noticeable when it came to the differences, and it's something you'd have to pay attention to notice what changed. The more noticeable difference is going from either one of those nozzles to the gold nozzle, which is what I feel is like the treble boost filter, so you get a touch more sharpness to the notes, a little bit more openness, but it could probably be attributed by the slight reduction of the bass, but it's not going to drastically change the overall profile of the sound, and for me personally, it's still a bit on the smoother side overall. So comparing it against one of my favorite budget IEMs from Kefine, and I've talked about this IEM in many videos, and it is the Kefine Clean. So they both have very similar sound characteristic. Warm, full-bodied bass, generally clean sounding presentation, but the Clean, to my ears, has a bit more sharpness to the treble extension, a bit more openness compared to the Quatio, whereas the Quatio sounds a touch darker, but having a bit more drivers as well help with bringing some of those details to be ever so present, but it's not a night and day difference with the Clean, so it goes to show that the Clean can still stand on its own and it presents a slightly more exciting sounding presentation, and the Quatio is an alternative flavor to that with its smooth sounding nature. And recently I've talked about the Zigat and Hangout Audio Odyssey 2, and both have very similar sounding profile, but the Quatio is much warmer in its presentation and it delivers a bit more engagement and excitement while still maintaining that smooth sounding characteristic. So if you tested the Odyssey 2 and found it a bit too lean, but you liked everything else about the Odyssey 2, then the Quatio is the answer to that. And it's a lot cheaper too with a better stock cable, but if you liked how lean the Odyssey 2 sounded, then you might just want to stick with that. So in summary, another very solid IEM from Kefine, especially for those seeking a relaxing yet warm sounding presentation. It definitely goes toe to toe with a lot of other sets that has that smooth and warm sounding nature, and for what the Quatio is asking for as a whole, including the interchangeable nozzles, the stock cable, and the sound, Kefine has once again redefined the price bracket with the release of the Kefine Quatio, but it doesn't blow me away as much as the Kefine Clean did. I think that IEM is still my favorite, but that's based on one man's experience, and I'm curious to know your thoughts. What is your favorite Kefine IEM to date? Comment below and let me know, and with that all said, thank you once again to Kefine for this opportunity and to all of you for watching. See you in the next video.